Hi, I'm John from Our Home From Scratch, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use a joiner. Alright, so before we get started I want to show you what an application for the joiner would be, and then we'll go over to the tool and I'll show you how it works. But say for example you want to build a dining room table or a kitchen table, and you want to do it by gluing a bunch of boards together. So here are two pieces of reclaimed pine I got from a lumber yard some time ago. And normally what we do is we basically stack them sideways, and we would put some glue on one edge, maybe some pocket screws, maybe some biscuits, and you would just keep adding them as you go and then clamp them up. So the issue here is, I don't know if you can see this, I'll show a close-up video of this or a picture, but the seam where these two boards line up. Now, even though these were cut using a table saw and the fence was square and the tools were pretty good, you still end up getting a pretty visible seam. And there are areas where these boards actually separate, even though they're butted up against each other. So those gaps are a problem. Now you can leave the gaps and have a rustic look if you wanted to do that, but if you wanted this to be a nice, seamless, professional looking tabletop, what we would do is we need to clean these edges up, and we're going to do that in the joiner. So what the joiner will do is there'll be a blade that runs across this seam, and you can joint either the faces or the edges, and what that'll do is it will give us a nice factory edge. So what happens is when you rip a board on the table saw, the blade tends to wobble slightly or move, or the board moves relative to the blade, and you end up getting just some unevenness on this cut. So even though it looks good, you can tell if you look at it through the edge, it really has a little bit of wave to it. Same one here. So we want to correct that, and we'll show you how we do it on the joiner. So this is my joiner. This one is made by Jet. It's a 6-inch model. I bought it off of Craigslist for a couple $100. I think brand new these are around $750 to $1,000. This particular model is 6 inches, as I mentioned, and that dimension, 6 inches, is actually the width of the table. So you can get 8-inch or 12-inch versions if you're like, bigger carpentry shops. You see those sometimes. But for a lot of smaller shops or just home shops, a 6 inch is what you would typically see. You can also get something like this in a benchtop version. Jet makes one, Delta makes one, and it's just got a little shorter tables. And this heavy part here, which is cast steel, would be sitting on your workbench. You wouldn't have the stand for it. So this joiner basically works like this. There's an in-feed table and an out-feed table, and then there's a blade that is set, the height of the top of the blade, it's actually a 3-blade wheel there, and the top of the blade is set roughly as high as the height of the out-feed table. And we can adjust the in-feed table's height higher or lower. And as we bring a workpiece across it, either on edge or on its face, it'll come across the blade and be left with a perfectly square face that's flat to here and square or 90 to the back fence. Okay, so if I want to lower this in-feed table, it actually takes a lot more material off. If you want to bring it closer to the height of the out-feed table, then it takes less off. I think I have mine set for maybe a 32nd of an inch or something like that, and so I can make multiple passes without really taking a ton of material off. So if you saw my cabinet video where I did some inset doors, I used this to trim very, very small amounts off the door edges, and it left them with a nice, perfectly square face. So it's much better than using like a electric hand planer or a table saw to clean up an edge, because this gives you basically factory edges. So what we'll do is I will take those two pieces of two boards and we'll joint the edges and also joint the face to see what that looks like. You can see how this works. But it's pretty straightforward. There's a motor in here. There's a dust port out here, which I haven't hooked up yet. Turn it on. It's actually not that loud. But anyway, it's a pretty necessary tool if you wanted to get into some higher end carpentry. Even if you're just interested in making cabinets, having one of these around is really helpful. So this little thing here, it's like a spring-loaded gate, and it just keeps your workpiece squared flat up against there. All right, so let's get those boards, and we'll show you how this works. All right, let's get started at the joiner. I'm going to clean it off. I haven't used it in a while here, and I'm going to use a couple of these orange safety push blocks, okay? So they keep my hands away from the rotating blades. And what I'm going to want to do is basically just apply some even pressure and push the board across the blades. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm actually listening for the noise and the sound the blades make as they engage the wood. And at first it'll be intermittent as it's cleaning it up, and then you'll hear that noise pretty much constantly once it's cleaned the board up and straightened it up. Alright, now I'm ready to do some edge joining. I'm going to take my newly cleaned up face of this board and put it against the fence. Okay, so that's the clean side against the fence. And I'm going to run the edge of that board across the joiner, again listening for the noise, and then I'll inspect it every couple passes to make sure it didn't tear any additional wood out, and maybe rotate it if it does. But this is really all there is to using a joiner for your basic woodworking. So here's another close-up of that joint after we've jointed the edge there, and you can't even see the seam. So thanks for watching, and check out ourhomefromscratch.com for more videos and DIY posts. Thanks.